Thank you, love.
Just in case you didn't know. Good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be a fantastic session today. We've got the fabulous Diana Tapp, who is the CEO of World Class Teams. Diana is an author, speaker, and internationally successful corporate educator, specializing in the development of high-performance teams in business. Good morning, afternoon, Diana.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Stacey. I don't know about you guys. I think we still suffer from our upbringing, don't we? That it's kind of embarrassing listening to people introduce yourself. I don't know that I'm ever going to get used to that. But thank you all, and lovely to see you all. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And if you need to have a little bit of lunch while we're talking today, please feel free to do that as well. You will have seen, because you've signed up for it, that our topic today is how do we make sure that we become leaders and help our people to become leaders rather than managers? And why does that matter? So it's going to be an interactive session. I'm loving that we've got the group that we have here, and it means that there can be plenty of questions. So I will share some PowerPoint slides with you in between, just so that you've got those. Very happy to send those to you afterwards. I know it's often good to look back at it as well, isn't it, and say, hang on, what did you say around that? And obviously you'll have access to the recording. So as you've got questions, please just pop them into the chat box, and Stacey and Michelle will monitor that, and we'll either go bang in with the questions in the middle of it all, if that seems the right time, or we'll certainly save some time at the end to have questions too as we look through. So thank you all. Where do we sit in this leaders versus managers? You know, it's not just about the terminology. It's about the sense of when do you need managers and when do you need leaders, and what's the difference between the two, and how do you get leadership? So when you look at leaders, they are 80 and 20, the opposite way around. So a manager is really good at that day-to-day. They have your team and your business fair humming. Things are effective, things are efficient, everyone knows what they're doing, it goes really well. And in good times, that's fabulous. Your leaders, on the other hand, so those managers, are going to spend about 80% of their time on that day-to-day, and they'll spend about 20% of their time thinking about what's next. So there's a forward focus, but the major focus is let's make the day-to-day hum really well. If you look at a leader is the reverse of that. So they spend 80% of their time with that forward focus. There's the strategic part. What do we want to do next? How are we going to get more clients? How are we going to deliver better service to our clients? That big picture forward focus. They still need to be grounded, right? Otherwise they get criticized for being all up in the clouds. So there's 20% of the time when those leaders need to be down on the ground, making sure that their teams are able to operate and get everything done effectively and efficiently. Okay. In good times, it's fine to have a lot of managers. In tough times, you need to flip and have a lot of leaders. Because in the tough times like we absolutely are in now, you certainly don't need me to tell you that, we need people who can still manage to have a forward focus. We need people to think, what else could we do? What can we do differently? That's not a management skill, that's a leadership skill. Okay. So I'm going to share some PowerPoint slides with you now so that you can see, firstly, those key differences. Feel free, as we say, to ask questions, to take notes, but know that I'll send you all of the slides afterwards too, so that you've got those, because it's much easier to refer back to in that way. And then we're going to look at some key skills that we need to have. So bear with me as we get up here. How to become a true leader, not a manager. We don't need the title slide per se, but we do, because you can see there's the leader standing at the top of the mountain. You know, what is the view? Let me have that forward focus. I've got to climb there in order to see that. I've also chosen that image because I think there's a quote that I love, which I think is pertinent to many people, but particularly to leaders. And it goes like this: those at the top of the mountain didn't fall there. Okay. In other words, if you're going to really lead your team in the lockdown stuff that we have right now, that means it doesn't happen fortuitously. You have to work really hard to be the leader that you want to be for your team right now. And I don't say that lightly, because to be honest, we're all feeling pretty knackered right now. So if some of your questions today are, how do I keep on being the leader that I want to be as well? Because I'm conscious that you might want some of the people in your business, your managers, to transition to being leaders. You might also be feeling, well, like I'm the leader and I've got that forward focus, but right now I'm finding it pretty hard to keep that forward focus 80% of the time. Include those in your questions if that's the case, because absolutely we need it now more than we've ever needed it before. Let's look then at the difference between leaders and managers and how we can help people therefore to transition from being a really good manager to being a really great leader. Okay. So the first one to look at is, as we just said, that your great managers, they're spending 80% of their time on that day-to-day, making sure everything is going really well. Your leader is spending most of their time with that future focus. What's next? What else can we do? What else is over there? Okay. Secondly, your manager has to be really good at influencing their team. That in itself is a serious skill, isn't it? Because not that long ago, people did what their manager said, not necessarily because they were influenced, but because, well, that person's my boss, so I just kind of have to. That doesn't work in 2021. We no longer have people saying, oh, well, you're my boss, so whatever you say is what I'm going to do. So as a manager, you need to be able to influence your team so that they're wanting to do the work that you're asking them to do. As a leader, you're going to widen that sphere of influence. Rather than influencing your team and only your team, you're influencing the whole organization. So it means if you're working in ops, how are you going to have a positive influence on sales? How are we going to get rid of that friction, that barrier that we often have between sales and ops? How are you going to influence the board? How are you going to influence anyone above you or parallel to you? That's an influence across the whole organization. And for many, I'm going to add into that and beyond the organization. How are you going to influence your customers? How can you be proactive in the way you speak and influence your clients as well? Okay. So it's another whole set of skills. Remember that much as you want to be really good at influencing your team, ultimately those people do report to you. So ultimately they do have to do what you want them to. Influencing an organization, people at your level or higher than you, they don't have to do that. So you need to be really good at influencing them. How are you going to get them on board? And there's definite skills to have in that space. If you're going to be an excellent manager, it means you're going to have really good emotional intelligence. If you've seen the material on emotional intelligence now, you'll see that 90% of the people who are successful in their careers have got a high EQ, a high emotional intelligence. Okay. So if you're going to be a really excellent manager, that means you can manage the pressure and the ugly and stressful situations 85% of the time. The vast majority. Okay. This is getting really tested now, isn't it? With the lockdown, we know that emotionally, we're sometimes completely fatigued and drained ourselves. We certainly know that that's happening with our team, and we certainly know that it's happening with a lot of our customers and clients. So this notion of having a high EQ and holding it all together is much harder now than it was when we weren't in lockdown, and that was much harder than pre-COVID. Okay. So the bar has been raised. The bar is raised even higher for a leader. So for a leader, you need exceptional emotional intelligence. And you'll see when we talk about the core skills of a leader shortly, that actually the bar up there is 98%. Okay. So that person that winds you up, or those situations that get to you, they can't. You need to learn to manage that if you're going to be a true leader. Okay, so the ask is big. The theory is dead easy. The practice of this is really hard, because if we're honest, we all have people or situations that wind us up, don't we? So it's how do we manage those? Fourth difference between an excellent leader and a true leader is, an excellent manager and a true leader is excellent managers are really good at implementing change. So there's the day-to-day. Here's the change that we need to do. Here's the change in the process. Here's what we're looking to lift. Great. Get me at it. So they're really good at implementing that. A leader, though, is the one who initiates the change. So it's not being handed to you. It's like, what can you see that can and should be changed? And then how are you going to influence people to want that, so that they want to do it, so that they come on board? So we've got really good doers in our excellent manager state. If you're going to be a true leader, you've got to be the initiator. You've got to be the driver. You've got to not only see that change, but you've got to inspire people to want to do it. Okay, different skill set. And fifthly, an excellent manager is going to enable their team to do their job really well. So what are the obstacles that you can remove as a manager? How do you enable them to work easily and minimize the obstacles? And again, in good times, that's kind of easy. It's really hard to do that part right now. How do you enable to do your team to do their job when they can't go out and do visits, when they can't collaborate as easily as they could before? It's that whole part is taken on a whole new level. And guess what? As a leader, it's called, how do you inspire others to reach their potential? So this is where you've got people's heads and their hearts in the game. They want to do an amazing job because you've inspired them to be that way and reaching their potential. So there's a big step, and that means it's actually quite a different skill set, whether you're going to be an excellent manager or whether you're going to be a true leader. Then you need to look at that skill set, look at your gaps and say, how am I going to fill those? I believe the truth is in organizations and businesses that when seas are calm, when times are pretty good, it's completely fine having a lot of managers. As long as you've got a couple of leaders in the business, and goodness sakes, let's hope that one of those leaders is the CEO, but as long as you've got a couple of leaders, your business will be fine in calm seas. But when you get to rough seas like we have now, then you need leaders, because you need people who can have that forward focus in spite of the fact that it's really hard to even imagine what it's going to be like in a month's time. It means for your teams, they're in this storm, right? So they're buttoning down the hatches, if you like. As a leader, how are you going to keep them on board? How are you going to inspire them and motivate them so that they keep on going even though times are really tough? Yeah. How are you going to create that certainty for them? We don't know what's going to happen in a month's time. We do know where we are for this month. So how are you going to inspire your team, motivate them, keep them productive during that time? So in stormy seas, you need leaders at every level in your organization, okay? Not just at the top. So we're not talking about the CEO or the MD doing all of this. We're saying at every level in your business. So your team leaders, your senior managers, all of those people need to become leaders, because we're in times that are difficult. That means we need people who can step up and have that forward focus. We need people who can hold their emotions together even when they're under enormous pressure. We need people who can influence both our customers and also people at every level in our own organization. And that right now they can do that remotely as well. You know, that adds another whole layer, doesn't it? Because if you can be face to face with someone, particularly from another department, it's much easier to have that level of influence. We have to be much more intentional about that influence when we're working from home. When we're isolated physically from each other, there's none of that water cooler talk. There's none of the walking past and I notice that, you know, Di's shoulders are a bit down, so I might just check in to see what's happening in the sales area right now. We need to be intentional. We need to have our blinkers right back so that we're looking long and we're seeing how can we make a difference here. Okay. Over the last 15 years, this has been our baby, helping people to become leaders. To be honest, it was a heck of a lot easier pre-COVID, but I'm enjoying the challenge of it now. And what that work that we've done over that time, we've worked with probably 6,000 leaders or so and across a whole range of industries and businesses. And what that has enabled us to do is to say, you know what, there's actually 5 core skills that every leader needs. If you can get those 5 core skills, then you'll be able to transition from being a great manager into being a great leader. Okay. So as we look at those 5 skills, I'm going to share those with you today. As you look at those 5 core skills, do a little rating for yourself too. You know, on a 1 to 10 scale, how good do I think I am at this? There's some other things that we can help you with that I'll talk about at the end, but be tough on yourself. Look in the mirror and go, each of these 5, how good am I? And be thinking of some of your key managers and team leaders in your business too, who you want to transition into those higher leadership roles and also to have greater leadership skills themselves. Where are their gaps? And how can you help them to fill those gaps? Okay. So we'll look at those core leadership skills now. And here's number 1. You will have seen it from that first table too. Both the verb and the noun is important. So when you've got a leader, they're going to initiate change. That means we're not just implementing, coping with it. Oh, so those words that we say like, oh, well, you know, just what we've got to do, boof, that can't be here. Because there's nothing about thriving on change. There's nothing about initiating change. We go, oh, well, this is just what we've got to kind of do now. It's okay if you think that, but do not let those words come out of your mouth. If you're a leader, it's your job. You want to inspire others to make the change. Yeah. If they hear, oh, well, it's just what we've got to do, guys. Sorry, we've just got to suck it up. Why would anyone want to do that? Okay. So the words are cheap, but the actual doing it is the hard part, right? So if you're going to be a true leader, you're going to initiate. That means you've got to thrive on rapid change. You've got to ensure that you and your team are unbeatable out there in the marketplace. And that's hard right now. Yeah. So it's challenging ourselves to really think beyond. What else can we do? How can we not, will we be able to do this? Wrong question right now. Too many no's going on. How can we? How can we change? How can we reach our customers? What else can we do? What other options do we have? Asking those questions will help you to become a change initiator, a change champion. Okay. So there's several things in here that when you're rating yourself on that 1 to 10, be thinking about these. Notice it's create change, not merely implement change. Create the change. What else? What else? What's next? What can we be doing? Secondly, this is a hard hit, but it's a true one. The truth is, this is binary. If you are not growing, if you're not getting significantly better and growing, then you're dying. Like, those are the only two options. I think too often we think, oh, we're trundling along, we're going okay. There's no such thing. If you're trundling along, chances are you're dying. Might be a slow death, but you're dying. So we're growing, thriving, or we're dying. Okay. The choice is ours to make. One of them clearly is a lot more exciting than the other. One of them is also a lot more challenging. But I want it to be there, because I think when we go, look, we're doing okay, let's just sort of survive the next month. If you're surviving the next month, what you're actually doing is dying. Okay. So it's, what are we going to do differently in these hard times in the next month? What are we going to do to try to grow? Okay. So there are questions around there, just keep them coming in the chat box, because the hard questions are the good ones. Yeah. But I want us to, as leaders, we've got to see it as this binary. We're not trundling along. We are growing or we are dying. Okay. Because if you're looking to say, well, we're growing, that's going to make sure that you're the change champion. Okay. You're leading it. You're inspiring people. You're getting the next step ready for people. Okay. So there's core skill number 1. Give yourself a little rating, 1 to 10 on that one. 1 being, I'm really not good at this. I hate change, actually. 10 being, I'm awesome at this. Okay. Second core skill is this exceptional EQ. If you look at the image there, you know, anyone who tells me, oh, I never feel frustrated, I'm always calm, it's like, well, you're either a liar or a jellyfish, you know, because the truth is we all get pretty annoyed sometimes. And how we respond to that emotion is the important thing, right? So in that space of emotional intelligence, the things that we need to know firstly are to recognize our own emotions. So the person that tells me, oh yeah, I don't really get emotional, they probably don't realize it. But when you say that, you're already telling me you've got a pretty low EQ. Okay? Because if you've got a high EQ, you'll know, oh, these are the triggers. When this happens, I get annoyed. When this person even looks at me, I get annoyed. That's how we know that we're on our way to having a high EQ, is actually recognizing those emotions in ourselves, first of all. And what happens? Oh, God, the hairs go up on the back of my neck. I get a little bit flushed. Whatever, my eyes start popping. That's my one. You know what it is that what triggers and what happens to you when that happens. Because when you do, now you have the opportunity to manage those emotions. Oh, gosh, when that happens, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. That's the first 2 important steps of emotional intelligence, is recognize what the triggers are and then say, okay, how am I going to manage that? How am I going to behave with dignity? How am I going to behave with a forward focus in spite of the fact that I'm feeling pretty anxious or pretty annoyed right now? Okay. And then secondly, which is even harder, is, oh my gosh, we need to notice the emotions in other people and respond appropriately to those. I don't know about you, but in most of the businesses that we work with right now, boy, there's some clients and some customers who are pretty jolly grumpy, pretty jolly rude, pretty jolly demanding, even more so than they were pre-COVID, right? And boy, it's tempting to say, look, for goodness sakes, I'm just trying to help you, we're all in this together. Well, there's the low EQ response, okay? Perhaps justified, we tell ourselves quite often, and guess what? Other people tell us, oh, I get it, Di, why you did that. Man, I would have too. That's not exceptional EQ. Okay. So when you're going to be a leader, no matter what the other person does, you still respond with dignity. You drive for the outcome, but you respond with dignity. And most of us have grown up with, One person shouts, the other person shouts. And then they say, well, she shouted at me first, as if that makes a blind bit of difference. Okay. It's our job not to shout, even when the other person's shouting at us. And that isn't because we don't have emotions. It's called, how do I respond appropriately to get the outcome that I want? Last time I looked, shouting at each other doesn't usually get the outcome that we want. Okay. So what are we going to do differently? It means that we need to learn really good techniques for how to step up under pressure. Okay. If you remember back to that first chart, managers are really good at managing their emotions 85% of the time. That's really good. Like, let's not kid ourselves, right? I bet you we all know lots of people who manage their emotions less than 50% of the time. Okay. So 85 is a big ask. Guess what, though? When you're a leader, it's 98%. Pretty close to God, you know. You've got to get it right damn near all of the time. And so what you'll see, I've called that is no excuses EQ, ever. That doesn't mean we will always get it right. There will be that 2%, but it means when there's that 2%, I don't say, oh, well, you know, I'm not God. What can you do? Like, it's called, darn, how am I going to stop that happening next time? That's what no excuses EQ means. I never excuse my behavior if it's inappropriate for the situation, no matter how much people wind me up, no matter how over I am of lockdown and COVID. So it's a massive, you know, conceptually, like most of these things, it's pretty easy. Oh, yeah. Recognize your emotions, manage them. Recognize other people's emotions, manage them. Oh, yeah, good. Try doing it. Try doing it in COVID. Try doing it in lockdown, day after day. That's what the challenge is. Okay. But if you're going to be a great leader, that's exactly what the challenge is how can we learn techniques? And there are techniques in all of this. How can we learn techniques to make sure that we have exceptional, no excuses EQ? Because when you've got that as the leader, then you also can start coaching and influencing the rest of your team to be the same. And what do most of us know? Our people in our customer service or that front facing, they're the ones that really need help with this, because frankly, they're the ones that are getting the most abusive calls right now, aren't they? You know, often if you're the CEO or one of the senior leaders, you're not seeing it to the same level as your frontline staff are. So us getting really good at it and then being able to coach our teams throughout the business is so important in this space. Yeah. Third core skill, fire up your team. You know, many people who get promoted, or when most of us, when we get promoted initially because we're really good at getting things done. We're highly productive. We produce work to a high standard. Fabulous. You don't need to be inspiring to do that. You just need to be driven and you need to be highly competent. When you're a leader, though, your job is to fire up your team. Your team will do their best work when they are motivated. When they're motivated, they'll go the extra mile. If they're not motivated, if they're not inspired, they'll do what needs to be done. It's a completely different thing. In most of our businesses and organizations, we know that if we're going to deliver, if we're going to be the leader in the competition here, we have to deliver at the really high level, at a world-class level. And if you're going to deliver at a world-class level, sorry, good as you are, you can't do it on your own. So you need the people in your team to be delivering at that world-class level as well. They will only do so if they feel inspired. Okay. So this is about the heart talking. The head is the how to do it. That's the science and the structure. But the heart is that I really want to. So your role as a leader is to make sure you inspire your people to go the extra mile. How can you utilize their strengths? How can you help them to reach their potential? How can you build a culture and an environment where they want to be their best selves? And guess what? As we're saying, this is again harder right now, isn't it? Because most people are working from home. So we're not seeing them in the same way as we did before. It's harder to inspire people when you're not sitting in the same room. Okay. That doesn't mean it can't be done. It means we have to be much more intentional about it. So when we're working with people on firing up their team right now, there's another whole layer of intention because you're not physically in the same space as we were prior to lockdown. Okay. You want to inspire them to be their absolute best. When everyone is performing at their best, that is when your business is flying. And guess what? It's when you feel the best as a leader, isn't it? When everyone is giving their best work, it is the most fun on the planet to be a leader at that point because we're just flying. when you've got people sort of coasting along or doing just what's needed and sort of sliding around, that's frustrating as a leader, and it pulls your whole team down. In fact, there's some research that shows that if you've got just one person in your team who's underperforming, it drags the performance of the whole team down by 40%. So that whole notion of the bad apple, research shows it's really true. You either got to get rid of them or you've got to lift them. You do one of those two things, though. Okay. And as a leader, it's your job to try to lift them first of all and see that you can. Now that's about inspiration, okay? Because they're not going to be lifted from any rational process. They're going to be lifted from you getting into their heart. Okay. It means for many leaders, we've been, as I say, great at performing. So we're often good at getting stuff done. It's called, hang on a minute, that's your head. Now your heart needs to speak too. You're firing up your team. So that's that inspirational. It's your heart. So they need to see that you look enthusiastic. They need to hear that you're excited about this. And you better look like you are, you know, because it's, oh, I'm really excited about this is not the same as I'm so pumped about this, you guys. They need to see your emotion and it needs to be real. So those of you who know me know that there's a little bit of craziness in here. So it's like, yes, let's do it. Let's put on our red undies and go. That's all good. I can say that because I'm cheeky. So I would never say that. Don't say and do things that you would never say and do, but do realize that it's your emotion that inspires people. It's not your rational thinking. Okay. So you've got to find within within your personality, where's the part of you that is the inspirational part? Where's the emotional part of you? It can't stay tucked in here. It's got to come out so that people can see it. Okay. Because when you do that, that's when you lift performance of every person in your team, therefore as the team as a whole, and therefore of you as a whole too. Because at the end of the day, your performance is massively related to the performance of everyone else in your team, isn't it? You know, sure, there are probably things that you do pretty much on your own as well, but the bulk of the things that your team achieves and therefore you are seen as achieving comes from that performance of each of your team members, both as individuals and also as a team. So for what it's worth, that there's no I in team. You can see from my face that irritates me. There's no I in team, but there's a lot of me. If we're going to work really well as a team, yes, we need to have that cohesion and that collaboration, but each of us needs to know what we need to do, what our role is in that team and perform at our best. Completely parallel to sport. I can say, yeah, and our netball team, yep, we're all in this together. Yep, no one's fault if we lose. We're all in this together. Yeah, but you know what? If I'm the center, my job is to be fit as all crazy so that I can keep running up and down that court for the whole game. And Suzanne, you're in my shot. So if Suzanne's our goal attack, her job is put up 300 shots a day to make sure we get the goals in, right? Saying, thank you. Saying we're all going to be in the team. I was too short for Suzanne. That's why I was the center. Saying that, we're all in this together. We are, but we each need to know what our role is and do a massively good job at it. Okay. So that lifting performance is the team as a whole and also for each of the individuals in the team. Thirdly, there's a lovely phrase that says, we tend to get what we expect of ourselves and of others. So when you have a high expectation with your team about what we're going to achieve and how we're going to achieve it, they will come up to that. Sure, you may well need to do some coaching to help them, but when our expectations are low, we get mediocrity. When our expectations are high, we raise the bar, we get world class. I think that's really important now in lockdown. Do our expectations have to change? Totally, in terms of how much work can we achieve? If you're working from home right now and you're also homeschooling, for goodness sakes, there's no way on the planet that we can achieve what we did pre-lockdown. And as a leader, you need to make sure that you have an agreement with your people about what your expectations are, because otherwise your best people are trying to do everything they did before as well as be the teacher for 2 kids. It's not doable and they will burn out and you'll lose them. What's more, if they burn out, their family might lose them, which is even worse, right? So it's setting the bar high, but remembering the bar is in a different place in lockdown to where it is when we're not in lockdown, and certainly where it was pre-COVID and where it will be again next year. But right now, the bar has got to sit in a different place and you need to agree where that is and then have your team pumped for that new place. Because if they're trying to deliver where they were before lockdown, there's no way it can happen. So guess what? They have this constant sense of not being good enough, of not measuring up. Okay, move the bar for now because it belongs in a different place. And then we can be highly productive to that level, but absolutely expect that level. Okay. Fourth core skill. You remember back it was communicating and influencing your team, and now it's influencing across the organization. This ability to influence is an absolute learned skill. Most of us haven't learned it very well, because if we look at the way we've been brought up, we have this thing that in our families we call respect. Respect your elders, respect your parents, respect your teacher, respect your manager. But it turns out that we interpret that as obey most of the time. But there's a lot of people who have grown up now with obey. Ooh, that's a bit of a swear word. Those people need to be influenced. And I think that's a really good thing. We should be. Influencing means people are coming on board because they want to. It's a critical skill for a leader to say, how are you going to get those people to want to get on your bus? Okay. So if you know about Jim Collins, he talks about, get the right people on the bus. Yeah. Get the right people on the bus 100% and make sure they want to be on the bus with you. It's your job to influence them. It's your job to enable them to go, yeah, I want to be part of this. I want to be on the bus with you. What is going to be the benefit for them? What are they going to get out of this? What's the win for them? And also, what's the win for you? Okay. So it's that way of thinking. It's a way of getting people on board. It isn't forcing people. It isn't tricking people. It isn't manipulating people. It's ensuring that you communicate in the right way so that they go, yeah, pick me. Yep, I want to be part of this. Okay. It's equally important with our clients and our customers right now. So be thinking on that as you're going, ooh, how good am I influencing across the board? People above me in the organization, people at the same level as me, certainly my team, and also key customers and clients. How good am I at the same technique is there's a 4-step technique that you need. That's the technique that we need to influence at all of those people. Right? But we need to get super good at it, because that's how you can imagine when you can influence across the organization, that's when you can get the best and the biggest change projects happening, right? Because the change projects that are really going to change your whole organization and business are ones that are going to be cross-functional. So you need to have that good influence cross-functionally. Otherwise, guess what? Your project gets parked by somebody else because it's not a priority for them. When we've got those cross-functional projects, we need everyone on board, because otherwise they're not going to prioritize that project in the same way that A, you're going to, and B, you want them to. Yeah. Managing up, managing across, managing down. It's seeing all of those things. And I should probably have put manage in inverted commas, because the more, that's our colloquialism, if you like. We say, oh, just manage up. I want you to start replacing manage with influence. Influence up, influence across, influence down, influence sideways. Yeah. The more we're doing that, the better our communication skills are going to be, and the more they're going to serve us. So your ultimate goal is to be a game-changing communicator. You know how to communicate to get stuff done, the really exciting stuff that lets you be set apart from other businesses, lets you be ahead of the competition and be the one that everyone else is chasing rather than the one doing the chasing. Yeah. Requires us to be, sometimes I like to describe communication as the oil in the machine of an organization. Okay. Actually, nothing gets done. Doesn't matter how awesome your processes are. Doesn't even matter how fabulous your people are. If that communication is not happening, nothing actually gets done. It's the oil that we need. Okay. And if you think of that as the oil, then the quality of that oil, the quality of our communication, and the quantity of that oil, the number of conversations that we have, makes a massive difference to the end result. Our machine of business and organizations can only fair hum when we've got really great communication skills. Leaders need it first, then everyone else in the organization too. Yeah. Can't emphasize enough. It's core skill number 4. It's like, oh, pops up. Absolutely, it's what you need. And then the last one, the last core skill that we need in this space is, and this is so challenging for leaders, isn't it, is about optimizing your time. Before we're promoted, again, most people who are high achievers, we pride ourselves, oh, gee, I'm actually really good at managing my time, and they are. They stand out because they get stuff done, and they get it done effectively and efficiently. The truth is, though, before you become a manager or a leader, it's not that hard actually to manage your time because it's just me getting my stuff done. The minute that you become a manager, let alone a leader, you're now in this situation where it's called, well, hang on a minute, I've now got these people who are reporting to me. So suddenly my time is not just spent doing tasks. My time is now spent helping other people and setting other people up to do a lot of the tasks that I used to do. It's a different skill set. And it means that there are more outside, if you like, influences and pressures on our time than ever before. So we are very good at talking about, oh, work smarter, not harder. But most of us go, oh, that's not really how it works. So we work harder, longer and longer and hours, more and more hours, i.e. we need some work in this space that says, if you think about your time, there are two aspects to it. There's the proactive, the planning part we can do with our time. So we call that proactive productivity, proactive techniques. And then there's, as a leader and as a manager, there's all those times when you need to react, where someone needs you. It might be a customer, it might be your team member, it might be someone from another department. That's reactive work. You didn't know it was going to happen, so you can't plan for it. But you need to react, i.e. respond in the right way. So when you're in a leadership role, you need to be really good at the proactive part, the planning part, but you also need to be really good at that reactive part. When is it an interaction? When is it an interruption? And how are you going to respond in each of those situations? Yeah? So critical that we get good in that space. I think layered on top of that now is two things. Even pre-COVID, we are going at a faster and faster pace. So we are forever leaner and meaner and needing to get more done with less time and fewer resources and fewer people. Secondly, layer COVID on top of that, where I think most leaders are very conscious right now that their people are struggling and they don't want them to burn out and they don't want them to feel overwhelmed. So guess what happens? The leader tends to take on more. So it's that part about going, oh my gosh, we've just added another notch here when we're talking about working smart and be thinking about our productivity at these times. It actually challenges us much more deeply because it says we have to get really good at going, what actually are the priorities right now? What are the real must-dos? Not priority number 7. There will not be time for priority number 7 right now. What are those top 3? Our business, my people, our culture depend on these 3 priorities. If there's more than 3, you and your business are probably going to drown right now because we simply can't keep taking more and more and more with the juggle that's already going on. Yeah. And as a leader, we need to model what it is that we're expecting our people to do. That's way harder, isn't it? If you've got 8 priorities and you get them all done, it doesn't really matter what order you put them in because you get them all done. That's not that hard. What's really hard now is there's still 8 priorities, but you can only do 3 of them. So which are the 3 that we're going to focus on? That is a much, much harder prospect, especially for high achievers who become leaders because you're used to getting everything done. Like, oh, that's a bit ugly. So we actually need as part of those techniques to say, there's a line in the sand here. What's in the box that is still a priority right now in the next month? And what was on our plan pre-lockdown that, you know what, it's lovely and I don't want to let it go. However, right now, it is not in the top 3 priorities. So we need to park it for now. It's not going forever, but we need to park it for now. Those decisions of what to say yes to and what to say no to are the decisions of a leader, and they are difficult decisions. If we don't make them, we spin our wheels, become overwhelmed ourselves, and probably your team is going to see that you're doing that as well. Yeah. So I'm going to come back to you guys now because I can see in the chat box, and I haven't cheated and looked because I want to stay focused, but it's called whatever the questions are sitting down there. And Michelle, I'm going to ask you to have a look at those, but equally, we've got this lovely little group. So it's like pop on your microphones, when you have got a question too, and let's have the discussion in here. And then that will give us more richness now. And then we can talk about, so what do you do next? Because there's got to be a what next. Otherwise we raise awareness today and you go, oh, well, that was really good. It's like, and so what? So we've got to make sure that we have a so what coming out of today as well. So Michelle, can I go over to you and check out what questions we've got, please? not letting you.
So Michelle,
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh,
here I am.
There you go.
Button. Yeah, we just had a comment from Anil, so he might want to elaborate on that.
Take the floor, Anil. Take the floor.
It was more a bit of humour, that's all.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, then let me hear it.
Well, only when you said that, you know, if people say they don't get emotionally caught up or
Yes.
react emotionally to things. I'm fairly level-headed. My wife calls me a Vulcan from time to time. So hopefully it doesn't mean that I'm not devoid of emotional intelligence either.
What? I hope not, Anil. I hope not. Maybe, and it's that part where you go, look, I managed it. So the difference is this. One is, I'm actually always calm. Nothing riles me. I'm going, ooh, that's low emotional intelligence. If you go, I look calm most of the time. I manage situations. That's higher emotional intelligence. I look calm says, I recognize that sometimes the hairs do go up on the back of my neck, or I get a little bit sweaty or a little bit hassled. I know how to manage that well. So there's the test. I am always like this, or I know what to do when this happens. So I
suppose I'm lucky as well in that, you know, I don't have a team myself. I work with people who have teams, so I can be that. I don't have to be as personally affected, I suppose, by the issues that they have with that my clients have with their teams. So that's probably part of it as well.
That's certainly true, Anil. I think for most of us, if we're really struggling to say, oh gosh, what does rile me? Think about what happens in your family, you know, your own little nuclear family, and sometimes our extended family, because that can be pretty telling sometimes. And for you, Anil, maybe, I know that I've sometimes had to cover this off with clients, is maybe you're better than me at this, but you know, when you have people, sometimes you think, oh, you could so do way more than that. Like, I can feel myself thinking that is wasted. You are wasting your potential. And I have to play that really. And remember when I was learning to coach with an organization that I was working with at the time, they go like, whatever they want, Di, like, that's okay. Your job is just to take them on their journey. I'm just going to say, I always struggled with that because I'm thinking, no, I can do bucket loads more than that. To be honest, I think it's one of the reasons that I love workshops, because guess what happens, you know, I can challenge people, but you will also challenge each other and yourselves in that space. Peer pressure is a marvelous thing, not just for teenagers. It's also a fabulous thing for adults, because if I said, okay, let's put the challenge out on, let's do this. And Michelle's thinking, oh, I don't know if I can really do that. And then Suzanne says, oh, I tried that and I did this. Michelle's going, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. We don't verbalize it, but that's exactly what happens. And it's called use it to advantage, you know, in that space. But your wife is lucky, Anil. If you're cool, calm and collected, that's a very good thing, right? Cool.
We actually have another question. Before we go there, though, I can attest to Anil's leadership skills. I've been working with Anil for the last couple of years almost. And yes, he definitely has them. So
yes. There you go, you, Anil. There you go.
Thanks, Stace.
Nice.
You can raise my pay later.
With a thumbs up too.
We have a question from Lee, and I know Lee's been doing some work with you, Lee Hicks. Lee, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oops. Am I unmuted? Hello.
Hi, Lee.
I'm in casual mode. That's why the video was off.
That's all good.
You just made me change something, Di, because I have to admit, I was doing something while I was listening to you, but I was preparing a direction to our managers on how to deal with the permit process. And then I went, oh, whoops, she just told me to change from management role to leadership mode. And I changed it and said, you know, basically, we need to decide on a process. What do you want to do? Here's the info. Rather than say, here you go, this is what I want you to do. And I realised why our management meeting went really badly yesterday.
Well done, Yuli.
Because we told them what to do and what we expected rather than ask them what they thought we expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Because you know what, when when we're decisive people, Lee, as you are too, it's hard, right? Because you go, well, here's the future and this is how we get there. You know, it's easier to do that pathway than to say, hey, here's the future. How do you guys think we'll get there? So there are different options in this. It's rare, I'm going to say, in real organizations and businesses that we go, hey, what do you guys think we should do? And it's just a clean sheet of paper, you know, in your dreams. But usually we're saying, okay, so we want to keep everyone safe. What are our ways of doing that? You know, we want to hit 90% vaccination for our team. What are our ways of doing that? Or we need 2 new ideas with engaging our clients over the next month. What are your ideas on doing that? So you can still set what I'm going to call parameters, but there's a lot of wriggle room inside that, because then people feel like, exactly as you say, Lee, they feel like, oh, we've got a say in this, you know? And that has all these lovely flow-on effects, doesn't it? That say, oh, great. I'm valued. My ideas are valued. I've got responsibility. I'm not being micromanaged. I'm seen as having good ideas in a leader. All of these lovely flow-on effects happen. Plus, people who do tend to sit back and go, oh, you just tell me and I'll do it. They don't get that option anymore, because it's called, come to the meeting with your 2 ideas on how we might do this. Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm going to start with Suzanne, because I know she's prepared. So Suzanne, we'll start with you with your 2 ideas and we'll go around the room. You know, and Stacey's smiling at me, so I'm going to pick on you, Stacey. And Stacey's going, I don't know, she meant we had to bring 2 ideas. I thought she just, you know, well, guess what, Stacey, you know how long you've got before it's going to be your turn. So it's such a good way of making sure that people truly feel engaged, but do engage as well. You know, we don't want people sitting back and being coasters. Neither do we want, because the people that will impact the most are really good leaders. We don't want them feeling like they've got no chance to lead, because if they feel that now, guess what? They'll lead, all right? They'll leave you and lead somewhere else. You know? And as we all know, we lose our best people, and the ones you go, oh, they could go off. Well, they don't. They stay, and we lose our high flyers. So one of our ways of keeping our best people is to make sure they do feel like they're leading, rather than, you know, they don't want to do the day-to-day stuff all the time. They want to have a sense that they've got some impact on the long-term vision and the next vision of the business. What are we going to do to keep ourselves going in COVID? What are we going to do after this? So well done, Lee, because you know what? That's awesome. That's awesome leadership.
Got rid of a bit of my frustration just then.
And it's courage to say it too, right? Like, I take my hat off to you, because it, you know, as well, for people who are revered as leaders, as you are in your business as well, Lee, and rightly so, you know, it's kind of hard to say, oh, shoot, I wasn't quite best practice on that. It's easy to, oh, well, you know, everything was rushed, so we had to make a decision. We tend to excuse when actually, if we really look hard in the mirror, we go, oh, wasn't the best strategy. You know? Yeah. Much more courageous to say, hey, let's start that again. That wasn't my smartest strategy today, you know. Much rather we do that. And you will be respected for it as well, you know, because people are smart. They can see when we've messed up or been less than our best selves, you know. Happens. Cool. Have we got other questions? Just pop your mics on if you've got those. Suzanne,
I do.
Suzanne, I'm loving it. Right, Suzanne.
I was very interested on when you spoke about the core leadership skill number 3, so firing up your team. So you mentioned that during COVID, it would be good to kind of lower the bar, take a bit of pressure. My problem is in our industry, the accounting industry at the moment, is whenever we go into lockdown, suddenly there's a lot more work for my team. So we're you know, reaching out to every single client, making sure they're getting the grants and whatever, and just keeping up with our normal workload as well. So we do have working mums working from home. Some prefer to come into the office when they can. So my question is you mentioned burnout, and that's something that I am aware of. The pressure that my team have at the moment is incredible, and they're all coping very well. But there's little like snippets there that I can see when they say, I'm okay. I'm really great. Usually they're really, really highly positive. So what can I do as a leader to help them manage this workflow that I'm finding very difficult to lower the bar on, just because of the pressure that we've got? What can I do as a leader to help them?
Totally. The first thing I'm going to say, Suzanne, is well done, actually, the first thing I'm going to say, because that's brilliant, seeing that and going, yay, here we are looking after our clients and making sure they get the grants, because that's so key, right? First thing is, like, hop up in that helicopter yourself. So there's where you can get your overview of like, well, what actually really matters here. Contact with all of our clients. Yes. One way of contact with all of our clients is we call every single one of them. Yeah. And that's going to take a massive amount of time. So maybe up in the helicopter, we go, I'm going to call these 5, or someone in my team is going to call these 5 because they're, for whatever reason, you'll have the right reasons, like they're super needy and they want that individual attention, or they just won't get it. And I know they're stressed for whatever reason, and you'll have a criteria. But you know what? Then there's another 15. We need to reach out to all of them. We could do a little video. Sometimes we need technology. An email is not sharp, right? Because we can't, if we think about communication, we've got 60, 30, 10. 60% of that communication is our body language, 30% is our tone, and only 10% is the words. So an email going out and saying, you know, let me put this up. I'm really sorry to hear about COVID and lockdown. It must be, you know, like there is no tone in it, right? But there'll be a tone that people perceive. So they go, oh, all very well for her. She's still working flat out, but my business is, you know, like, we can't control that. Where they see Suzanne and they say, whoo, another 4 weeks, guys. So sorry to know that we're here for you. Just wanted to give you these 3 tips today, blah, 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 blah. Now, suddenly, instead of me doing, or your team doing a 15-minute call to each of those 15 people, you might have spent 20 minutes getting that video ready, and it goes out to everyone. So if we're in the helicopter, we can see some ways to give the end result, and it's sort of like that initiating change. How can I give that result, but in a slightly different way? Yeah. I definitely think too, Suzanne, although we want to and need to do all of this, sometimes it's called, but what are the top 3 priorities? Looking after our clients right now, no doubt, is number one. So that becomes the priority. And you know what? The tax return that we said we'd have that done. Cool. As part of the video, we're going to say, bear with, you are our most important people right now. We're checking in to make sure everyone is okay and able to apply for the grants that they're eligible for. Bear in mind that will mean that our timeframes for tax returns, where we usually guarantee them in a month, that's probably going to be 6 to 8 weeks right now. Just up front, people go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You know, they're not sorry if we're not magicians, you know, like there's those people we can do that with. But because by changing, we're still doing the stuff, we've moved the time frame of it. That's going to release pressure from your people too, because they go, how do I get all this done? And if we get too much like that, we actually get paralyzed to do the right thing because we spend more time than actually doing. You know, it's like, we need to do the doing. But I think as a leader saying, hey, you know what, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks, instead of busting our gut to say, let's still try to make it 4 or 5, let's just go out to our clients and go, you know what, right now, is it more important for you to have your tax return from last year, or is it more important that you've got all the grants that you are due? And if you go, oh gosh, it wouldn't be appropriate for this person because actually theirs would be the tax return because they are doing fine, they don't need the grant. Well, guess what? Those ones are going to be prioritized for their tax returns because that's the most important thing for them. But for this group of businesses where it's like, oh my gosh, we're hoping to survive here, the grants are going to be the most important thing. And I sense from the way you've asked that question, Suzanne, that you know your clients really well, so you'd know which ones are in which.
And it's kind of exactly how we've done it. Obviously, we can't do everything all at once, but I'm just concerned is not the right word, but aware that my team are under a specific amount of pressure, and I'm finding that difficult to lower at this point, or take that away from them.
I think move those expectations harder, because right now it sounds like they're keeping the same expectations and adding more to the bucket. You know, so it's like
more to the bucket. That's what it's
So I've made an executive.
Don't worry, we had a cocktail Thursday lunch.
That helps. Oh, Stacey, that helps. And I think the other good thing, and this might be useful for all of you too, is, you know, we often as leaders are good at checking in and saying, how's it going? And as you rightly said, Suzanne, like, oh, fine, thanks, or doing okay, it is what it is. It tells you nothing other than, gee, not that great. So if instead we change that to personal and professional life, or personal and working life, 1 to 10, what are your numbers this morning?
Okay.
When people give their numbers, you get a much clearer indication of how they're feeling, and that gives you the chance to say, did you want to share any more of that, Suzanne, or not? And what can we do to make that a bit better, you know? And what definitely we can notice with clients is we've done this kind of thing for a long time. In lockdown last year, I can promise you the numbers were higher than they are this year. So people are finding this lockdown harder. And I think we started it going, oh, well, at least we know what to do. We're completely over it because this is the first lockdown when the numbers have been going in the wrong direction. So the light at the end of the tunnel keeps getting covered up. It's like another day in paradise. I was going to have the kids at home for a week and I've now got them for a month, and I'm now hoping I'm not going to have them in term 4. I thought that I jumped on a plane and went to New Zealand in June. I can't jump on a plane anywhere anymore. It's those things where it's harder because we're fatigued from last year. We're on the second round of the holiday being postponed again, the wedding being postponed again. I'm just sick of this stuff, So
I'm supposed to be at my daughter's wedding right now.
Yeah. And I think we see places like Afghanistan, and so we almost feel guilty again and go, oh, like, what are we worried about? We're not fearful for our lives. But the truth is, this is still, yes, we're luckier than many, many, many places in the world. Still makes it pretty rubbish right now, And I think being able to say that and say, yeah, it's pretty rubbish right now. Then we say, okay, so we're going to lead people out of that again. But it's like, it's okay to fall off the bike sometimes because we do. Now, how do we get back on the bike?
Yeah, I quite like the out of 10.
Yeah,
ranking out of 10.
We've found it really helpful, and you can do it in the one-on-one situation. It's also helpful in a team meeting because actually it's kind of nice for the team to hear each other's numbers, both because they'll feel less, oh, it's only me who's struggling right now sometimes, but also, oh my gosh, so-and-so had these numbers. I better reach out to him or her because, they're obviously doing it really tough. It's not just the leader's job to be looking after everyone. If we're a real team, we're all going to look after each other too, including our leader, when he's struggling.
Yeah, we have the morning huddle on Zoom every morning. So there'll be a new rank, how you're feeling out of 10.
Absolutely.
In our huddle. And then I can have further conversations if I find someone is extra low.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's useful to be doing it both in the team situation and the one-on-one. Follow up and make sure as leaders too, all of you, that you share your numbers too. You're not just here to find out the team. And if you do have a day where you think, oh, this is pretty rotten, it's like, do that, because people otherwise think that you're God, and none of us are, none of us are God.
Thank
you. When we're lifting. So well done. I'm conscious of timing, so I'm happy to have more questions, but I want to, I was saying to Stacey, whenever we do sessions like this, you want to make sure that people are going to do something differently afterwards. So I'm going to set you a couple of little challenges. And the first one is think about those 5 core skills, rate yourself on them on a 1 to 10 basis so that you know where your challenges are and where you want to move. Think also about other of your high-flying managers, your high potential piece in your business that you want to transition them from managers to leaders. Where do they sit right now? And you might want to do this with them, but where do they sit on these core skills? What do you want to develop in them so that they are able to step up to that level, which goes from manager to leader? And think about how to do that well. So I always think in these things, we start off with the analysis, then there actually is a second step that says, decide to do something. Sometimes we go, oh yeah, this is where we sit. Yeah, we should work on that. And we never do. And 2 years later, we're still, oh, we should work on that. So there's actually a real step called step 2, decide to act. Are you going to do something about it or nothing? That's okay. It's like a crossroads. Are you doing something? If you're doing something, what's the something that you're going to develop that? If you go, oh, no, I'm not going to do anything, that's okay. That's a decision too. But if you decide to do nothing, remind yourself you'll actually go backwards. You won't stay where you currently are. So there is a crossroads. I'm going forward. That means it's going to be effort, time, commitment to change these things, but it's doable. Or I'm going, nah, it's not important enough. That's okay. But remember, you'll slide backwards on that. Okay, so there's our crossroads. Then it becomes like, now then, how are you going to fix those problems? And of course, there's multiple ways. We're happy to help you with that, and if you want to in that space. So we have 2 ways of helping that transition into leadership. One that we've just done a special member offer for Penrith Valley members is that there's a Diploma of Leadership and Management. That diploma is a nationally accredited program. It focuses on those 5 core skills. So if you want yourself or some of your managers to get that upskilling, 6 sessions, 6 days they'll have with us, and that's where they'll be at in that space. And there's 62% off right now. So check out on the website and you'll see that there. The other way that is maybe less, if less of an investment in terms of time or money, is we're just starting up some little micro learning sessions. So there'll be 1 hour, you get your action pack coming out of it, and it'll be on specific parts of personal leadership and leadership. Yeah. So if either of those are interesting and it called I just want to hear more, it's no commitment, flick a little text to Michelle, and I'm going to give you her mobile number, 0411 480 090, and just pop your email address in there or say, I'm interested in hearing more about, and that will put you on our early bird list for the micro learning. Or if you just want to learn more about the diploma, please don't see it as any commitment. It isn't. It's just the opportunity to ask more questions. Then do that. Equally, if you go, I don't want either of those, but I just want to ask Di a few more questions about that, same thing. Text Michelle and say, I just want to set up a little call with Di to ask more about. That's part of what the package is. We want people to get better and better. So it's like jump in there. Beauty. Thanks, Michelle. In the chat box, got her details there too. So I'm conscious of timing and that we're running more madly than we ever did before. I'm happy to stay on for a little bit. So if you've got other questions, please do so. But otherwise, have you enjoyed session and found it useful? Cool.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Diana.
Lovely having these great little groups where we actually have this chance to talk. Oh, Laura, you're back home as well. Well done.
Yes, I have been here. I just realised my camera.
I know, no, well done. So please feel free to stay on if you want to a little bit now, but lovely to see you all. And it's so nice actually to have a group this size where we can see each other's faces too, and it's not kind of disappeared into the ether. So please stay safe, look after yourselves as well as your team. And we'll look forward to staying in touch. That's, I think, connection for leaders is just as important as us with our teams right now, right? Sometimes we realize ourselves that our little tanks need a little bit of filling up too. And so I hope in a small way that today's session, our little lunch and learn, has filled up your tank a little bit too with things that you can look after yourself with and just think about what you might do both for yourselves as well as for your teams. Yeah. But thank you,
Di. Look,
on end of September.
From the Chamber's perspective, thank you so much for today. It really is such an important conversation, and hopefully it's going to ignite some really key conversations amongst teams for you guys too. So contact Michelle if you'd like any more details about what these guys have to offer, because it's so valuable, as Lee can attest. So we really thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's been great, I think. Happy Friday. What have we got? Few hours. In workshops, I have this rule that if your phone goes off during a workshop, you owe me a gin and tonic. And like right now, I just have to buy them and pour them for myself. But sometimes Lee and I have a quiet one when we've just been working really hard. So there's we did a little gin tasting last week, Lee, with Archie Rose. So if you need an extra little fun family or activity, some good gins to test out. So I'll bring you one of those.
There's a few of them.
Opera House outside, you and I will partake. And anyone else who wants to join us. But stay safe. We need a little bit of fun in that whole sense, isn't it? That's part of the injection that we need too. So well done you, Suzanne, because I have from a secret source that you're very good at doing that. So
we've decided to have themed Thursday, so watch out on Thursday if anyone comes onto a Zoom meeting with me. We're dressed up.
Excellent. You're going to love this one then. We've got a client, we've been building so again, reach out if you'd like this. We've been building this set of activities and things to do that just keep people connected and a bit of fun, because we'll get like, what else can we do? So we're starting to build this really great list. A client last week, they've got these awesome ideas. I tell you, she's a massive source for me sending all these things out. But they had this thing at their team meeting of come dressed with something from the kitchen. I tell you, there was a winner. And she sent me the photo. This guy had got, and she said, and he was the most introverted person in their team.
Oh, wow. You just
he
wanted
put it in the little stainless steel bowl. He made himself glasses out of aluminium foil. He got some sort of canisters and gave himself some breastplates. And then he made, had a belt and he had cans in it like it was ammunition. And you're like, boom. I thought, you know what? There's that part where we go, who wants to do that? Well, you know what? We find out the sillier we sometimes are, the better we feel, you know.
Yeah,
And when there's no choice, you know, some people obviously just came with a bowl. Like, you can partake as much or as little as you like, but you know, feel free, reach out and share what you do, and we'll share back with what our listeners. It's so good for us. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to go inject a little bit of fun and share.
That's right.
What's working.
Going to see some amazing 80s style fringes.
Oh, watch out for the blue eyeshadow.
I'm just worried about the balayage that I didn't plan to have. It's like,
yeah, we've all got it. We've all got it.
It's far away from my natural colour. Like, who would have thought?
How funny.
Well,
all right, thank you, Di.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much,
Stacey,
Di.
for
Look soon.
organising.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
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 Yeah.